Equal pay has been a hot-button issue for over 50 years now, first being acknowledged by the Equal Pay Act of 1963. Despite this piece of legislation, women still make less on average compared to their male counterparts. Part of research is finding unbiased sources. For example, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, women earn 81 cents for every dollar men make on average. This number is found by dividing the average earnings of women by the average earnings of men. It is important to acknowledge that the left and the right have very different views on what the wage gap even means. When working from different starting points, it makes sense that they would come to very different conclusions. The left bias. One problem that comes up quite a bit is cherry-picked statistics where women earn less than men. This is the same as when people on the right pick out the few fields where women out-earn men. It is dishonest and doesn't properly reflect the issue as a whole. One great example of this is the controversy surrounding the U.S. women's soccer team and how little they are paid compared to men. Comparing their payment without acknowledging the difference in sponsorships, viewerships, is not fair. Right bias. Sometimes people will conflate the unadjusted wage gap with the adjusted one. The adjusted wage gap is sitting at 98%. A statistic is found by directly comparing men and women in the same field. This ignores the fact that women are pushed towards different occupations due to societal pressures. The most glaring example of misinformation can be found in an article written for InfoWars, in which statistics are misused and statements made by professionals are misquoted to support a belief they do not hold. They use accurate sources, citing a Harvard research study and statistics from the BLS. The problem with this is how the information is portrayed, picking only the pieces of information that suit their argument. Even more egregious is how they use an out-of-date source. They cite statistics from the BLS, but the source they use is an outdated source from 2005 instead of the updated version released in 2016. What makes a credible source? The advent of the internet has brought the world's knowledge to our fingertips, but sifting through what is accurate and what isn't can be a difficult task. While finding a source can be a difficult task on its own, confirming its validity can be even more challenging. Some things to consider when reviewing a source are: who wrote it? Is this an opinion piece or a scholarly journal? If it is an opinion piece or a secondhand source, what are the political leanings of the published website? Most websites have an About section you can check, and a quick Google search can give you a good idea of any political leanings. Finding a primary source like a scholarly journal or a research study is preferred as it displays the information in the clearest way possible. Anyone retelling the information in an article may try to skew the information to mislead the reader. When was the source published? Always make sure the sources you are citing are recent. A good rule of thumb is no more than 5 years, although it does depend on what you're researching. Relevance and parameters of the study. Make sure the study or article you are reading pertains to the topic you are researching. It could be helpful to write down a few key points about your topic and only to look for sources that relate to this. Taking a look at the wage gap. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median weekly earning of women was 81% to that of men. This number will be referred to as the unadjusted wage gap. The adjusted wage gap is 98%. This number comes from a variety of things, the most notable being occupation. InfoWars is a far-right media organization. I would not recommend using them as a source for accurate information. In this article, they mischaracterized a Harvard study and used another study by the NBER, which was written in 2005, instead of the updated one that was written in 2016. The writer also cherry-picks a few fields where women do out-earn men, but those are far and few in between. Men do tend to earn more than women in most fields. The article mentions a part of the Harvard study that talks about how women prefer having flexibility in their schedules, and how single women who are parents are less likely to accept overtime opportunities. They must have stopped reading right before the part where the Harvard study specifically says that targeted legislation could resolve this problem and shrink the pay gap. As students, we have all heard to never use Wikipedia because anybody can edit the webpage. But as times have progressed, spreading information through Wikipedia articles has become much more difficult. These pages are heavily moderated and are constantly being updated with the latest information. Citing Wikipedia directly, however, is still not a great idea, as almost all the information is a verbatim section from the studies that are all linked at the bottom of the page. Make sure to actually read through the study and verify that the information is being accurately portrayed in the same way that you would do when reading a news article. Finding sources. News articles are a great place to start looking for sources. They usually link to whatever studies they are citing, and the more recent the article is, the more up-to-date the information cited tends to be. While reading directly off a Wikipedia page is not recommended, most of the sources they cite are worth reading through as long as you verify that they are accurate. Another great option is looking through your school's library database. All of the information that you find there has already been vetted by somebody, but it is still a good idea to do your due diligence and verify the accuracy or recency. Solving the pay gap. There are many obstacles to fixing the gender pay gap. The Harvard study referenced earlier states that policies that increase workplace flexibility would help shrink the wage gap. Another thing that should definitely be discussed is that women tend to gravitate towards lower-paying jobs. This is mostly societal. Boys and girls have different expectations set upon them as soon as they are born. Toys and media are marketed differently, and as a result, our interests differ as we age. One thing that cannot be understated is the impact positive role models have on our future career choices. One example of this is the Scully effect, where the impact that Dr. Scully from the X-Files had on women in STEM was tracked. Encouraging women to pursue higher-paying jobs and promoting positive role models would also help shrink the pay gap.